Washtenaw County, Scio Township.
Okay. So we have a quorum with the exception of Lisa Baker, who's absent.
All right, we all set there, Patrick?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to item B, approval of tonight's agenda, July 6, 2021. There's going to be some amendments. We're going to add the Lotus Gardenscape proposal for discussion. And then also, you may have come across your email in terms of adopting the new meeting policy for the remainder of the year. We will put that as a motion and essentially have to decide whether we want to stay remote or go to in-person. We can talk more about it at that point in time, but a hybrid where the public will have access. And in fact, board members could actually work from home as well and would have access. And so that we'll put that at the very end. And then the Lotus amendment would be in item G. So I will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda as amended.
I would support that.
And if you could call the roll, Patrick.
Okay. Calhoun.
Yes.
Chuck Billups.
Yes.
Bob Hyde.
Yes.
Andy Turner.
Yes.
Norm Roller.
Yes.
Patrick McLaughlin votes yes. Alec Jerome.
Yes.
And Rita Clinthorne.
Yes.
Passed unanimously.
All right, item C, approval of June 1st, 2021 minutes. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll support.
That was Hobb that was supporting.
Yes.
Thank you. Do we need to do a roll call on that as well, Andy?
Yes, please.
Okay, Hobb Calhoun.
Yes.
Chuck Billups.
Yes.
Bob Hyde.
Yes.
Andy Turner.
Yes.
Norm Roller.
Yes.
Patrick votes yes. Alec Jerome.
Yes.
And Rita Clinthorne.
Yes.
Passed unanimously.
Great. Moving on to item D, public comments. We do have some guests from the public. Welcome to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting, monthly meeting. Does anybody have a public comment? You have up to 3 minutes. All right, so, well, thanks for joining us, Pam and Jillian. So we'll move forward. Joe is here for another item, so we'll move on to item E, to our liaison reports. Thanks for everybody for getting those in writing. I will post those for transparency, but it will save us a little bit of time, I think. Alec, let's start with you with the Board of Trustee liaison report.
There was only one item that was germane to the Parks Group, and that was the presentation of the potential, and it's not part of the Parks agenda, but it's adjacent to the Liberty Pond Nature Area, which is the proposal to potentially designate the 7970 West Liberty as a historic district prior to a sale by the township. So we gave a presentation regarding the benefits of historic designation, protecting that property, protecting it for the natural landscape, the historic landscape adjacencies to the parks, agricultural, respectful of agricultural heritage, and that was presented to the board and to the public at our last meeting. And we'll come back to the board for possible action in July.
All right, thanks, Alec. Does anybody have any questions for Alec? Okay, moving on to the TAP report, which I have. Can everybody see the TAP report from Norm okay? And hopefully had a chance to read today. Thank you, Norm, very informative. I do not have any questions. Does any of the board have any questions about Norm's report from TAP? All right, going once. All right, thanks, Norm. Planning Commission. Thank you, Bob Hyde. Does anybody have any questions about Bob's report from the Planning Commission?
Not too much of it was really important to our group, but the biggest one I wanted to just point out is the master plan is being reviewed and it's posted. The public should be aware of that and how to find it. It's on the Planning Commission page in the township website, but I'm not sure. I believe it's elsewhere as well, but it's at least there. And they have until August 23rd. So I just wanted to make sure they heard that.
Yeah, thanks for noting that. Yep. All right. And the LPC, thank you, Hob. We got the tour update, which we can, if you have questions about the tour, let's wait till item K. And then he placed this in here in terms of recent LPC activity. Does anybody have any questions for Hob? All righty. Well, thank you to all of our liaisons for this is very informative, and I think it's important to see what the other committees are doing and how it may affect parks planning. Here is my report. Was everybody able to read this today okay? A lot of things going on. And then I will keep you guys informed via email as well. It's kind of informal, but I think I'm going to add the rule sign. Maybe tomorrow, I think Patrick will help me out to get the rule signs on Marshall especially, and then also Liberty Pond and West Scio. And so I just need to go get some hardware. I was hoping to get some hardware from Steve, that would keep those secure, but we'll just do the regular, screws, and we should be fine. And so we'll get those aluminum composite rule signs that we have approved and made, and get those posted on our kiosk. So those will look really nice, especially for Saturday at Marshall. Does anybody have any questions for me on any of this content?
I just want to, Andy, I want to compliment the chair on staying on top of what's happening at the various preserves and parks, and thank you for putting it in writing so we could review it in advance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, a lot going on. And then I don't have this on the screen share, but Nat, would you like to just do a brief synopsis of your email?
And incidentally, I apologize for not being at several meetings. I was out of town for one, and there were some miscommunications, and I didn't get logged on. But I'd always be glad to hear from anyone if you have suggestions or questions or reports or anything that you'd like to talk about. I think you all have my email. So by all means, stay in touch. As for the current report, I don't think I have anything very much to add. I just learned one new thing, which is that the Dexter Creamery organizes these treasure hunt things, and the last treasure was located at the Sloan Preserve. I didn't know about it in advance, and I'm a little embarrassed because the maintenance wasn't very current. But there were families and kids and dogs and I don't know what all running around looking for treasure over there, and I guess someone found it in the end.
All right.
Sounds like they probably got poison ivy too from your report.
Yeah, I'm afraid there might have been a few cases of poison ivy as a result of that. Yeah, I'd like to sort of keep track of events going on there and be prepared for them, but I missed that one.
Yeah, and those are nice things to publicize on our Facebook page and other, and other outlets for marketing. So thanks for sharing that. All righty, so let's go to item G, which is the one of the key components of tonight's meeting. So if we just kind of walk it back a little bit, Marshall Park is, at the corner of Zeeb and Dexter Ann Arbor Road, and it has the Z Road pathway running alongside of it. That is being developed into a park by our group. And so what we want to do is look to add some pavilions and a nature trail. And we have a couple of proposals that have come in to help complete that process. And so what I'm showing here is, this is from our pros plan, the Parks Master Plan, if you will, the 2018 to 2022 version, which has some of this narrative. So this has been in the works for quite a while. And then this is a budget narrative that was requested by Karen Lancaster for the Board of Trustee review. When we submitted our budget, the Board of Trustees wanted not defense of it, but just a narrative in terms of why. And so I had written this and seemed to get positive feedback from this group and the Board of Trustees at the time. So these are some very amateur drone photos where we will look to strategically place at least up to 1 to 2 pavilions on this, picnic pavilions on this space. The general thinking from the group at this juncture is that we will have a pavilion along in this region. There's pros and cons to the placement that can be decided as we work with our project manager or contractor of choice. And then we could also look to maybe add one in this corner as well. And so that's a nice location that has at least drawn my admiration as this space has become more finished by the contractors. I'm going to let sorry, Patrick, I should have asked you, did you have the ability to let Joe in if I would have asked you?
I don't know, frankly.
All right, so he's in. Okay, he's good. All right, sorry. A little hiccup there. And so what we have is a proposal from, and what we're going to do is we're going to discuss both of these. And we actually have Joe Maynard here. Joe, can you hear me okay?
Come on. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Kind of, sorry, I should have had, like baseball, I should have had you on deck a little bit better. I know you were multitasking. So I'm going to switch over to, this is, so I think most of us know Joe Maynard is from Washtenaw Engineering, and he was hired last year to project manage the implementation of the parking lots, the kiosk install, and the entry sign. And he's somebody that I've worked closely with since I got appointed in November, just because, as you can see from those property reports, there's a lot going on. And so I've been able to build a good working relationship with Joe. And so he was an obvious candidate to submit a proposal for a pavilion build. And it just so happens that he has access to a barn, a historic barn that he could shed some light on. But before I turned it over to Joe, I just wanted to talk about the proposed work project and just some quick clarity, because this is a nice cliff noted version before we really get into some details here. But the basic scope of the project is to install 2 pavilions, approximately 16 by 16. And the reason that those dimensions were chosen is because when it gets extracted from the barn, the way the posts and the trusses are all aligned, that's how they could be literally, you know, strapped and extracted out of there. We're not married to that size, but that just happens to be the good starting point, and a picnic table would comfortably fit on a pad with, you know, with those dimensions. And it's going to be out of reclaimed barn wood, and the area set will be a stone base. I think we've decided that we did not want concrete as our pavilion pad. And then also part of this proposal is a nature trail, which Joe would project manage and then bid out to contractors. And obviously the pavilion build, I'm going to let him go into detail about that process. And then also a bike rack, which would be a pretty easy accomplishment. And then some other website and other marketing materials, and anything related to wetlands or permits that would be needed. So that kind of provides a general scope. Joe, can I turn it over to you for a little bit more detail, and then see if the group has any questions for you?
Sure, that's fine.
Could you just talk about the barn and the wood and how we would, what this process would look like?
Sure. The barn, I've been trying to gather some information on exactly when the barn was built. The information is not very available exactly when it was built. But from the people that I've talked to, it's an early 1900s barn. It's got all hand cut beams in it. They're pretty substantial size. We had the structural engineer that we're proposing to work with out to the property, and they evaluated majority of the beams and determined that they were structurally sound. I didn't want to go forward with this if the beams weren't in good use and good shape to be used for a pavilion. So we went ahead and did that ahead of time to ensure that we would be able to do that. And then we also, like Andy mentioned, measured out the areas where existing beams exist in pockets. Sorry, phone call coming in. So we could figure out exactly where, you know, pockets are and beam sizes are. We can certainly work with the sizes to customize, you know, different sizes, you know, as long as we don't try to make the beams longer. I think we'd be in pretty good shape. Some of the pictures that you're seeing there are examples of pavilions. The idea would be to keep the pavilion roof similar to what we're currently going to be doing on the kiosks, and use a natural wood roof made out of black locust logs cut and placed on there, versus using a metal roof. Keep everything more of a natural state. We have variations and options as far as, you know, how the beams look, how they're put together. You know, there's plenty of options to work with the commission here and get something that, you know, you're going to like and you're going to be happy with. That's the idea. So we can go through different options and bring different, you know, photographs forward. The structural engineer will do all the details as far as the calculations, loads, and everything to make sure that the pavilion would be safe and secure for wind loading, snow loading, all of that, so that it would last a long time. Help us with, you know, sealing materials if needed, you know, and how often that should be done for wood barn structures. And then, you know, the process would go through, you know, building department review as well to be constructed or prior to construction. So I guess I'll open it up to some questions there.
So what, Joe, what is the main advantage of using, or what would you say from a parks point of view and a park visitor experience? What would be the advantages of using reclaimed wood, such as you're presenting here, versus simply going to Lowe's and buying some wood that we need?
Well, I mean, the advantage here is the historic nature of the barn. The barn is too far gone for us to save it. It's going to have to be torn down. We're planning to reuse some of the beams in the farmhouse that's there, rehab. But the rest of it was pretty much going to be, you know, taken away all the way or burnt. So I was just trying to find a way, somehow, somebody that could reuse the wood versus just, you know, having to get rid of it, really. So, I mean, more or less we would burn what's not used. So,
Yeah, and that of course releases something called carbon dioxide into the
yes. Yeah. So the more we can use, you know, the happier. And like I told Andy, I said, you know, we're happy to donate all the wood to the township to be used. Obviously, if you went out and bought this kind of wood, it would be fairly, not overly expensive, but it would be pricey. It would be more than just treated lumber from Lowe's, though the price of lumber right now is pretty high, coming down a little bit. But you could certainly go to Chelsea Lumber and pick out a pavilion package and come in probably around the same price point. And that's something we could easily look at too as part of the project is, you know, what are our options? What's the cost for doing the barn? And then what is the cost of doing a standard pre-built package from, say, Chelsea Lumber?
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
I think Alec had his hand up.
Okay.
And then we'll go Alec and then Rita. Go ahead, Alec.
So do you know if the beams have enough structural integrity to do the 2-mast versus a 4-corner mast structure for the picnic pavilion?
I don't know that answer. I'd have to go back to the structural engineer and find out. I know we looked at doing a slightly smaller pavilion, like the picture there on the right, and then one larger pavilion. I don't think we could do a 16 by 16 with 2. But I think we could definitely size it down for a single.
I guess I'm most interested, and I guess I'll just speak briefly in terms of pavilions, because I'm actually only in favor of one currently at the Marshall Park, only in that there's always the opportunity to add another, and I think there's other park exercises in the township where I'd rather devote some funds. I am in favor of the 2-mast, I'll call it, in that it provides accessibility from either side. And quite frankly, whether or not you're picnicking, you could be tying your shoe, you could be doing anything. I like that look. And I've talked offline with regards to this. I am, we can talk, any of the other wood you don't use, we can talk about. I actually have a pergola in my backyard constructed of barn timbers, and it's lasted for years. It's great. I love the look of it. I do think that the barn timbers would be better served in a more protected location. I would be more mindful of them at Township Hall, where I have some adjacencies to activity where I wouldn't be concerned about the presentation of this being likely to be defaced. I'll say it just as kindly as I can. And I am in favor of at least investigating the reuse of the barn timbers, because it is very much in the sustainable efforts of the township to try to repurpose these rather than dismiss them. They can last years. They look great, rather than a traditional treated timber from Lowe's. I think that we need to be mindful of cost, but I also think that we also have a duty to explore the different options. So that would be my thoughts with regards to the pavilion.
Thanks, Alec. Rita?
Okay, the only thing I have for Joe is, you know, I read the proposal and, you know, it reads like a legal document and it's a real contract and everything, but I found it a little bit confusing, just because I'm not exactly sure about how much things cost. It's not clear to me then. And so I'm wondering if there's some way we can do something where it's a little more itemized somehow, so before we actually decide on exactly how we're moving forward. maybe this is something you would do normally, but before we agree to it, I guess I would need that, just something a little more itemized, so I see there were so many different options and just a sort of a, this is how much everything's going to cost. But yeah, I just feel like it would be.
Question, Rita, can I jump in and just try to help out as best I can?
Sure.
So, and Joe, you can interrupt me, but so part 2 is really specific to the pavilions. And so we would basically be hiring Washtenaw Engineering to project manage the permitting, the logistics, the architecture of the pavilions. And then they would be, Joe would bid these out for final construction to, 3 contractors. Joe, we project that right to be around 15,000 per.
That is correct. That was just one cost estimate I received from a contractor that came out and took a quick look at it and said, based on past experience, he would expect the cost to be somewhere around 15,000. Once we get final details on all
Sorry,
that.
can you last if the group likes the 2 posted, the smaller footprint, in slightly less. But that could be subjective. And then,
yeah.
Right. And then the part 3 is, which we haven't talked about, that is hiring Washtenaw Engineering to project manage the trail for $13,250. So this $26,000, that would be the complete fee that Joe would charge us for project management for the pavilions and the trail. It would not include any contractor costs, permits, things of that nature, change orders.
So that's where I get confused. I'm not looking for a cap necessarily. I'm just asking. I feel like this is pretty ballpark because we don't know what all those other kinds of things are going to include. So I'm assuming that each pavilion, it's going to be about 12, thousand, whatever, almost 13.
Right.
But then those other things, is there going to be some limit to how much we can actually expect to spend? So we're not just writing this blank check and going, okay, we're going to pay this much and then whatever. That's the confusing part for me is, I guess.
Well, I think that I would say we could safely project probably $40,000 for the pavilions if we were to do 2. I'm a fan of 2 just because I think if we're going to make this commitment, I think Alec made some really good points, but I like having 2 there just because then if you have multiple parties, different families or different groups, they can have independent space. And then I also think that you reach some, if you're going to make the commitment to the barnwood, you reach some economies of scale, by doing more than one, possibly with a contractor. Just kind of mixing in some of my opinions. But so Rita, like, let's say we didn't do the barnwood. Let's just say, hey, we want pavilions. Joe's going to charge us $13,000 to make it happen. And then he would go to Chelsea Lumber, he would go to contractors X, Y, and Z, possibly get bids. But it is open-ended, but that's why you do bids, so that you can have competition. But I think our projections are pretty sound. I don't see us getting over $15,000 per pavilion. That's just my humble opinion. Joe, I don't know if I explained it well. Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's right. And the other thing with our contracts, they're time and materials not to exceed. So if we decide to back it down to just 1 pavilion, our cost is only associated with the time that we spend on the project. So in lieu of 2, we would definitely be lowering our costs if that's what we move forward. And you ended up only deciding on 1 pavilion, our cost would be reflected in that as well by reducing the cost to only 1 pavilion, 1 design, 1 permit. So.
Let's talk about part 3. Joe, can you kind of just walk through part 3 a little bit, the trail component? Well, let me hold back. Does anybody else have any questions about part 2 And I'm just trying to keep the meeting moving, but does anybody else have any questions about pavilions? Yes, Chuck. Chuck, you're on mute.
I was just a little confused. So the pictures have metal roofs, but you're recommending a black locust roof?
That is correct. That's one option. I mean, I couldn't find an exact picture online of what we're proposing. We only chose the black locust because that's the same material that's going to go on the kiosks. And that would keep the two roofs in the area all similar wood, similar posts, and similar styles.
All right,
That's the only reason we got that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Got it.
No antlers, Chuck. So
I like the antlers. Keep the antlers. More antlers.
Does anybody else have any pavilion questions? Part two. So part three, we have a concept trail that I think a majority, if not all of us, have walked and done some, and so what I have here, this is a GIS map, and then this is the map of the concept trail. And so it does go along the boardwalk. When Rita and Patrick and we went out there, they really enlightened me to the fact that we should make this come back on a natural surface. And so that would probably happen with this. In fact, I know it would happen, per our recommendation. But this would be all permits, so we would be hiring Washtenaw Engineering to basically clear all of this out so that it would be in a place that is then easy to maintain for Steve, whether it be mowing, invasive speed, because we have to think in the long run, if we're going to provide a nature trail, that we want to get it to a place where it's safe, level, mower friendly, where we can turn it over to Scio staff so that it's turnkey from a maintenance perspective. This trail is totally conceptual. In fact, it probably goes a little too far west in my opinion, but with our Washtenaw Engineering, they like our interns, they have surveying ability and make sure that we're properly set back from the property lines and things of that nature. So it'll check a lot of boxes, having Washtenaw Engineering. But there's also, we could do other playbooks, whether it be NAD or interns, volunteers, a combination of both. I'm just trying to clarify part three as best I can. Joe, would you be willing to add anything about part three that I didn't cover?
Sure, and it basically includes all of the design services necessary to go through Eagle permitting. Because this is a wetland area, we will have to go through Eagle to get a wetland permit in order to do this work. It includes the survey, walking around the site, figuring out where boardwalks are needed, where grading is needed, where drainage needs to go, and ensuring the path will be wide enough and safe enough for people to walk around through it. It gets you your permit, all your bidding documents. We'll bid it out to a minimum of 3 contractors in order to get pricing. We'll also work with the township and the Parks Committee here to figure out if there's picnic tables or I think we had other things, any other type of landscaping or things like that are needed that you're looking for as part of the bid package. We work with you to ensure that you're getting what you want through the bidding process and contractor selection, so that when it's done, you do get the trail that you're looking for. And then with Eagle permitting, you've got some alternative analysis that we have to do. And basically we walk through the entire process with the contractor from start to finish until the project's completed.
Does anybody have any questions for Joe regarding the trail bid?
I can ask another question. So I'm just wondering if this will be something that we will have, if we decide later what exactly we're doing, will those things be a little bit, here we go with that word again, sort of itemize some idea of what we're getting and how much it's going to cost? So we have some idea of what the boardwalks are going to cost and things like that.
Yeah, so we've got conceptual costing. We can work with contractors. So like if you wanted certain types of picnic tables, we can get pricing for those, or plants or wood chip paths or seating. All that stuff can be itemized and presented to you as we walk through this process, so that you know step by step cost estimate. What's it going to cost to do this, or this, before we actually send it out to a contractor to bid.
Okay. Yeah, I would like for the parks, for our group, to have as much information as possible. So if any of our Scio Township residents are questioning, wait a minute, but what are you guys doing and how much did that cost? I would like to be able to engage in that conversation and have an answer and just go, well, I don't know, we just signed a contract saying just do it. So that's where I'm coming from with this. I think to be able to understand what it is we're doing.
Yeah, I think our first step was to get a list from you, and then start looking at some of those costs up front. Then you can start determining, yes, we want this, no, we don't want this, based on cost and summary and work scope. Yeah.
Good.
All right, thanks, Rita. I think Bob had his hand up, and then we'll go Alec and then Patrick.
Okay, thank you. My question has to do with what we're deciding tonight. And if I understand correctly, what we're going to be deciding is which manager of the project we're going to choose, and it will be later on that we'll itemize the exact list of things that will be done with the subcontractors. Is that what I'm gathering? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Andy, this is a question for the chair, but I'll wait my turn.
Yeah, go ahead, Alec.
Well, I would just say this is a budget proposal, so this is based on a very limited knowledge of the scope of services. The reason that we would be meeting this evening is we're going to determine if it's one or two, if it's a bike rack, if there's plantings, like was proposed by Lotus. So once we've added some definition and a path has been defined, we can get a linear foot cost for a path and development, the boardwalks associated with it, as that's been developed. But this is a little bit of well, there's euphemisms for it, but covering yourself with a time and materials not to exceed, which allows for the ability to not have as much definition as we're hoping to place on this, which will allow Washtenaw Engineering to come up with a more succinct cost estimate for the work that's finally settled on by this group.
Patrick?
Yeah, Joe, I was just wondering if you had some suggestions for a park or some work that you've previously done that might be similar to this, that we could potentially just take a site visit to get a more concrete idea of exactly what you're anticipating.
As far as what Washtenaw Engineering has done for project?
Yeah, for the contractors that you've dealt with previously, something that is similar in nature.
I would have to look for one and get your references on that. I don't know off the top of my head. We've done quite a bit of work with what's the name? It's escaping me now. Find it here. Well, Land Ethics Studio. So we worked with them a lot on public parks on numerous occasions, and actually I've talked to them about this proposal as well. Though we were more in tune with when we had done the proposal for Liberty, the Liberty Pond, doing the observation and things like that we had talked about. It was, bringing them in with us on that. But we've done walkways for Washtenaw Community College, Eagle permits for them, other places So yeah, I can certainly get you a list of locations and pathways and things like that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Hob?
Yeah, Andy, maybe I'm a little bit like Rita. What are we, and Alec, I think you seem to lend some light to what we're trying to decide. Do you want to add anything, Andy, to that? Because I want to make sure, like the other comments, what is we're trying to decide tonight.
Well, I think that we could parse this out if we're more comfortable with part 2 than part 3. I think we have another proposal to evaluate and discuss, so I think we'll move to that. But if we believe in pavilions for this space, I think it would, hypothetically, what we would do is we would make a motion to recommend the part 2 of this proposal to the Board of Trustees for final approval. At that point in time, we have committed to hiring Joe as our project manager, and then he will bid out the pavilions, and most likely using reclaimed barnwood. If that falls through, then it would be from another source. But it can be parsed out. So I think, to walk it all the way back, and again, the votes will speak for themselves. Pavilions and a nature trail have always been part of the narrative. And so, as chair, I'm just trying to give us choices and options for completion. There are numerous ways for us to accomplish the trail. And if we don't like that portion of the proposal, then we could parse this out. I think Joe's comfortable with that. Hob, does that somewhat answer your question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, we heard from Alec and what he sees as the way forward. I'm comfortable with Joe, and I'm comfortable with Washtenaw Engineering, certainly. They do a lot of work for Scio Township. They're a good outfit. But I just wanted to make sure I understood where we're going in terms of making decisions tonight. So it sounds like we have a lot of flexibility. But we need to take the first step forward, and it sounds like the first step forward is to agree to hire Joe and specifically Washtenaw Engineering to move us ahead. Does that sound right?
It is. Yep. So let's, we're going to circle back. Alec, I think the best thing to do is to discuss the Lotus proposal, and then we can circle back for motions. I spoke with Bob briefly before the meeting. Does that seem like an appropriate plan of action?
Yeah, I would recommend. I don't think we're presuming that we're going with Washtenaw Engineering. That's why we're evaluating 2 proposals.
Right.
And then we'll take whatever park plan we develop in our heads. We will engage either a composite and or one or the other for that, to bring that to fruition.
Yep. All right. So moving, well, thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. We do greatly appreciate it, and we like working with the township.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
So the other proposal that we were able to procure was from Lotus Gardenscape, and so we've got the same components. I think this really allows us to look at especially from the pavilion perspective, comparing and contrasting costs. There's different elements to this, and in theory, we could approve elements of each proposal. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to read through this. Travis, from Lotus, was not able to join us, but I would think right away, we should look at this. They have carpenters, and that's where he came out with his cost projection for one pavilion. So it makes the other proposal, seem somewhat reasonable. And he also included some landscaping work along the entry areas. That was part of the proposal request. Does anybody have any questions for me that I could possibly answer about this, or just general discussion, observations of this proposal to, Alec, go ahead. You're on mute.
Of that damn mute button. I just have a couple comments. I guess
Commercial.
one of my concerns would be the plantings, because I've been to probably almost every park in Washtenaw County in my many years here, and we don't really have, there's not a lot with decorative plantings too. I'd be a little bit concerned about the fact that we barely have the ability to maintain a park, and then we would put plantings in it, which add another level of maintenance. That would give me concern. The one thing that can also, that I was taking a look at, is this is not as clear on the engineering side of the requirements for, and the permitting and the actual site survey for the location of these. I didn't see that necessarily included, where I did see it in Washtenaw Engineering. So I just want to make sure we're clear that there might be some other ancillary costs that are not included in this proposal. So just a couple thoughts there.
Great points, Alec. Thank you. Does anybody else have any observations about this proposal?
I would like, I understand, Rita, you've been involved in some of the site visits with Lotus. I'd like to hear your comments.
Yeah, I was, and I've had Trevin do work for me before, but yeah, I see these proposals as being, they are very different. Again, Trevin, I agree that there's not as much detail about some of those things that aren't listed on here. One is like a real contract, a real legal contract, and this one is a little more vague somehow. So I'm a little puzzled by both of them, actually.
Yeah, I think that oh, sorry, Rita. I think that when we visited with Travin, I think the general idea was for, there's a little bit of thinking outside the box a little bit, but, they were local, they had carpenters, and so we knew that they could landscape it, do the picnic pavilion paths, and pavilions, and the bike rack. And one of the things that we were kind of hoping for was that we do have an entry sign for and I've put it in an email. We have the Marshall entry sign has been put in, but there's also a Z Road Trail entry sign, and part of the dialogue was maybe to get creative along there, with some hardscaping or landscaping, and do some creative work with boulders. And Patrick heard, he was involved in some of that conversation, and so it's just one of those things where, and then I think Trevin's maybe this contractor's used to maybe working right alongside with the client, but I think we maybe chose to just get out of his way a little bit and just keep it neutral, and maybe that is why we didn't get as much detail as we intended to. But yeah, we would definitely be working alongside with this vendor and with all the design decisions, but basically it would definitely get the ball rolling on a pavilion. One pavilion, at probably close to $30,000. And so, and we knew that this particular, Lotus, they're mostly residential, but this is such a simple space that, the intent was to let their creativity get embedded into this space. So I don't think, does anybody else have any other observations or questions? Rita, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. Did you have any other thoughts?
I know that Lotus did some work down in West Park in Ann Arbor, down by where the music show is. So as far as they did some design work down there. So I really, I'd like to advocate for them, but then again, I just think that it would be nice if we had these contracts that were clear enough that we really understood what we were getting and what we were paying for and all that. And that's where I am. Sorry.
No, thank you, Rita. It is slightly open-ended, but it was kind of open-ended, when the township hired Washtenaw Engineering, like I said in the email, like with the scope of that work, I mean, we didn't even have entry signs yet, and so, and with this barn, we've got a fallback, but there is an element of a leap of faith. I get all that. So I think everybody's asked great questions and made great observations. I think we're at a point where, would anybody like to create a motion to recommend to the Board of Trustees at this point in time, any element of it or from either proposal?
Andy, can I ask another question?
Of course.
Has the Board of Trustees seen these proposals?
Mm-mm.
And
Will is aware, but no. I mean, Alec could speak to that. This is
No, they have not.
the first time we've really done this in terms of, the last March, I mean, so we're doing good things here. It's just, this is just part of the process of, I think that, I don't want to speak for Alec, but, we've got professional park people on our Board of Trustees. We've got the former chair, we've got Jacqueline, and obviously, Alec, and then Jane. The Z Road path, this space is so complementary to the Z Road pathway. So you've got folks that are very interested in what we're doing, and I think that they're looking. That's why we exist, to give them guidance. Not that they would rubber stamp it, but they would. They're looking for guidance from us. Go ahead, Alec.
I think maybe, and I know that timeliness is of the essence as well, but in contractor parlance, it's known as apples to apples. And so the contracts aren't apples to apples, and that's therefore creating some disparities in the proposals and the understanding of them. I think what would be helpful is that we need to define exactly what we're going to ask these contractors to provide a proposal on. So you need to determine, yes, we're going to have a bike rack. No, we're not going to have a bike rack. Yes, we're going to have a footpath, and it's going to be, you can do even just through GIS, it's going to be 1,700 linear foot. So they can give you a linear foot cost for it, and you can give it for blocks of, you need to come up with the definition of the number of pavilions you want, whether it's one or two, and then secondly, if you want to use new materials or reclaimed materials. And then also if you want plantings. I think that it would be helpful for the group to settle on those criteria, and then you could have Traven and Joe refine their cost proposals to give us a much more definitive cost with regards to the work. We're not even agreed in what we're doing at at Marshall Road, which is, I guess, what I think is leading to some concern by various members of the commission. My opinion, and I'm also happy to. I want it to go forward too. We need to do something here, and we've round robin this. I wish we had gotten Traven's proposal earlier, so we could have had some of the discussion prior to this meeting. So, just my thoughts.
No, thank you. Great points. I'll put my. Go ahead. Sorry, Al. Go ahead, please.
Alec, I think you're making some great points, and Andy as well. And Rita, I think your comments really speak to what Alex said about, like, what is it we're actually deciding. So I'm going to make a stab at it. I'm not making a motion. I'm going along the lines, I think, Alec, what you're suggesting. I'd like to see one picnic pavilion at Marshall Park. I would like to see one picnic pavilion, ideally constructed out of reclaimed wood from some source, that makes sense. Thirdly, I would like to see a nature trail planned and cut, and perhaps using a contractor to do that, whether it be Washtenaw Engineering or whether it would be Lotus or whomever. And then let's see, what was the and I am not proposing plantings. I have a lot of gardens, including perennial plants, as being suggested here. If you are not out watering those plants every week and monitoring the amount of rain, and those plantings will not succeed. So I think $10,000 is a lot of money, and I think it's a waste of money unless we have the contracted services also to water those plants during the driest part of the summer. So I'm not proposing plantings. I think it's a bad idea.
Thank you. Well said. All right, I'll put out a motion. I'll put myself out there. After listening to the group and taking all this in, my humble opinions, I would be more comfortable with part 2 at this point, getting started with the pavilions. I happen to be a fan of 2, but we can tackle that later. Let's get Joe started on this reclamation project because there is some time window issues there. I think that part 3, the trailing, I think as Scio reforms its government and we get a manager in place, I think that we could seek permits and follow a different playbook with interns or NAT to trail that out and not pay Washtenaw Engineering $13,000 to to create a nature trail in that space that's 0.35 miles. So Patrick, I'll get this to you later, but I was scribbling here. I would make a motion to recommend part 2 of WECO's June 16th Marshall Park proposal to the Board of Trustees for final approval.
Can you add an amount, a money amount to that, Andy?
Sure. Motion to recommend part 2 in the amount of.
Can you bring it up on the screen?
In the amount of $12,700 then we should also put recommend part 2 in the amount of $12,750 of project management fees, because then we should have that specificity, right? That, I mean, this isn't like a start to finish for 12 grand. This is just hiring Washtenaw Engineering to start the process. And it should also, Joe didn't mention this, but even, I think the free wood is free wood. I think these pavilions aren't going to require a lot of lumber, but I think there is just a little bit of value to that. And then also the backstory that we could even add a plaque, and just some other things that I've thought about as this proposal has come through. And then we can talk about a 2-posted or a 4-posted and location, which will be an issue, and then the quantity, the 1 or 2. So I'll repeat myself. Motion.
Andy, could I add just one bit of? Could you just? I just said would recommend adding the proposal, the cost for 1 or more structures with using reclaimed wood as part of your motion.
Okay.
Andy, I'd like to support your motion.
All right, thanks, Hob. So, for the public record, let me try to wordsmith this, Patrick, because I know that I've been in your shoes. This gets tricky. I'll add all of these elements, and so that it's properly written, that we have motion to recommend part 2 of the Washtenaw Engineering Marshall Park proposal, I'll clean this up, for $12,750 in project management fees for the construction of pavilions using reclaimed barnwood.
Chair, 1 or more pavilions.
1 or more pavilions. My English teacher would not approve of this, to the BOT for final approval.
That's what I'm supporting. Is there a question?
All right. So I think, Alec, I got everything in there, and then I will get this to Patrick for, on our minutes. But that's the motion I've got out there, and we've got a second from Hob. Patrick, would you call the roll?
Yes.
You have to ask for any
Very
further
bad.
discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Sorry. Would anybody, Alec, was that what you're about to say? Would anybody from the
Yeah.
public like to?
Well, you don't have to, it's not necessarily the public, they're welcome to join, but you also have to ask if there's any further requests from the, so you have support, and then is there any further discussion with regards to the motion that's been supported on the floor?
Right, thank you, sir. Does anybody, is there any further discussion from the public or for the PAB regarding this motion? I'm just watching our time. I know that I want to be respectful of people's time. Pam Boyd, go ahead.
Real quick, you guys are awesome. I'm learning the process, and thank you for your deliberation. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Norm, I see your
Yes,
hand.
Andy, I'll call the roll then if you're ready to move
I think
forward.
Norm had a question.
Yeah, it's a little off subject, but are we obligated to take the lowest bid? And if we don't take the lowest bid, what happens? How do we justify that? Or was there a process for that?
Well, I think they're distinct proposals, and I think that if there's issues with that, the Board of Trustees can conquer that. This is it's a great question, Norm. It's very close because by the if we hit our target number with Washtenaw Engineering, which has been motioned, we're going to be at that $28,000 number. You know, right? If we could do one pavilion. So we'd be the 12.7 plus the 15, but I can help, you know, and Alec as our Board of Trustee, we can work through those issues. If it becomes an issue, we'll solve it. But I think that Will is capable of making things happen and getting it presented properly.
Over a certain dollar amount, we're required to have a, sorry, Andy.
Oh, go ahead, Alec. You'll answer it better than I could.
Just over a certain dollar amount, we're required to have a competitive bid, which we do from Lotus. Then there are items which are for further discretion, which would mean that any items that, not necessarily a low bid requirement, but for instance, the inclusion of MDEQ permits. So you can have other qualifications that would distinguish between the two that do not require you to take the lowest proposal, but we do need to have competitive proposals, which is what we've done.
Thank you, Alec. Well said. Last call for discussion on this motion. Okay, go ahead, Patrick.
All right, Hop Calhoun,
Yes.
Chuck Billups,
Yes.
Bob Hyde,
Yes.
Andy Turner,
Yes.
Norm Roller,
Yes.
Patrick McLaughlin votes yes, Alec Jerome,
Yes.
and Rita Clinthorne.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
All right, thanks, Patrick. So moving on to item H. This is from Washtenaw Engineering. Obviously, they are have been a strategic partner with everything that we've been doing in the last year. These are some improvements to Sloan that reach the threshold that we should probably create a motion for approval. But basically, what has been proposed from one of Joe's contractors is in order to get the entry sign in, and hopefully you've had a chance to see our entry sign at Marshall or West Scio, or excuse me, Liberty Pond. But this area is going to get cleared out, the fence is going to get removed, and then the entry sign, and I'm sorry that this image isn't as detailed as it could be, but there's a fence line right here, and then the entry sign in the post and panel manner will get installed right here, and that fence line will provide the proper setback. So then it provides a really nice visible area for the sign, and it also will enhance security because then the parking lot is completely visible to passing visitors or police patrol and things of that nature. There is a conifer, you know, this pine tree here that's into the wires. We could keep that, top it, You know, Joe thinks that they're gonna come get rid of it anyways, because it's now infringing on the power lines. Also part of this proposal is some new stone. I don't think the stone has been refreshed, at least in my, going back to 2015, as long as I've been involved with the PAB. So it's really just down to clay and mud. And then there's these trees that have really grown into these spruces, I believe they are, but really invasive trees that the contractor could remove. And it's all itemized right here. And so we could, I could pass this on to Will. We could do a, Alex, should we do a motion for this to approve since it's $6,000, or parse it out? Maybe it's some things that Nat could accomplish to get it below 5,000.
If it's over 5,000, you should have a motion to approve.
Okay. I feel, Nat, you're still here, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you think you could take out these trees right here? I mean, they're not,
Sure.
it would just make the whole parking lot, that would reduce it down a little bit, and then, you know, kind of cut back this to let that, let those, I think those are cedar shingles on that kiosk, let that get dried out and give that a little bit of a breathing room. Just some probably things that were on your to-do list. I think the big thing here is the stone, and then removing that fence. And then the north side, which didn't get captured in the picture, that's gonna get cleared out too and cut down. And so it's gonna really enhance the whole space. So I would create a motion to implement the Sloan Preserve improvements from, go ahead, Chuck, sorry.
Oh, sorry, that's just my arm.
Okay.
That's my resting arm.
And these were published, you know, prior, so hopefully you had a chance to process all of this. It's in the budget for Sloan. And so I will make a motion to recommend to the Board of Trustees to implement listed Sloan Preserve parking lot improvements.
Support.
All right, so motion, Connor, support, Billups, and Patrick, if you want to call the roll.
No, we have to have discussion.
Oh, gosh darn it. Thank you, Howard. Yeah.
Strike
Over
that.
two. I'm trying to be fast, and that's my problem. I'm looking at the clock.
You're doing a great job, Chair. I do have a discussion item.
Yes, please, Hub.
I've been concerned about the safety of vehicles leaving that parking lot for a long, long time. You sort of take your chances moving into traffic because of the vegetation, and even the current sign blocks your visibility, the one that's at the entrance. So I'm very much in favor of doing this. I also think that Sloan is a great preserve, and we've focused more on West Scio and Marshall Park and Liberty Pond. I think it's time to circle back to our original Scio Preserve, which is the Sloan Preserve on Baker Road, and to start to really take it under our wing, if you will, and start to care for it properly. This is a first step. I'm very much in support of this motion.
Oh, can I say something too? I'm sorry. I'll be fast, Andy. But I'm assuming that you're going to take out those two last things to remove the invasive plants and additional site work down on the road, removing some of those plants and the sign.
No, I want that. The motion includes that, Rita, I think.
But right. But we can do some of that instead of paying for it. We can.
I'd like to
we
get
can
pay for
help
it
that.
anyway.
We
like
can
to
make
get
it-
it done with permits, and we'll get it done with professional
Okay.
outfit.
Okay.
I don't want to hope that
That's
we
a good
can do-
observation. This could certainly be done with volunteer work. I agree, but I think Hob brings up a good point. You know, we're going to get rid of the existing sign. We're going to have properly setback permitted, all those sight lines that meet code. And so there is some, even though 1,200, And believe me, I don't want to, there's some things that I've done to eliminate costs. So on my own and various properties, just because sometimes the bids get out of control. So I try to do as much as I can to keep these costs down. If we can circle back, is there any other discussion from the group or the public regarding this motion that's been seconded?
Could you, Andy, could I ask you to add a number into your motion to make sure we're actually knowing what we're voting on? Thank you.
Yep. So it would, we'll accomplish that. We will add at the end for $6,000.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Patrick, go ahead and call the roll for this.
Bob Calhoun.
Yes.
Chuck Billups.
Yes.
Bob Hyde.
Yes.
Andy Turner.
Yes.
Bob Roller.
Yes.
Patrick McLaughlin votes yes. Alec Jerome.
Yes.
And Rita Clinthorne.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
All right, thank you, Patrick. So moving on to Mersereau. Alec, I don't know if you want me to give you the screen, if you have materials. I do have this up, which kind of provides context in relation to Scio Township.
Well, and I'll be very brief. We can actually have a much longer discussion because I think also what we're going to need is some of the materials from the Planning Commission. The reason I want to put Mersereau back on the parks radar. So we own a parcel of woods, 34 acres in size, with access from walking access, it's not parking access, from Marshall Road. And so I know we've been working very hard on the Marshall Road Park, and we're talking about Township Hall and West Scio Preserve and the Liberty Pond, but I also want us to be very mindful that we have Van Curler and also this Mersereau property. The Mersereau property is a little bit complex in that there are some adjacencies to a proposed PUD off of Baker Road, which has woods that abut Mersereau, and also an easement across the what is the Levine property. I don't have anything in front of me. I'm sorry. I've been dealing with emergencies at work, so that's why we can just do a very sort of an overview right now.
Yeah, I've got
and then get down
highlighted, Alec, if that helps you.
So in the corner of that property, so if you went from the Mersereau, which is the triangle, I'll call it the triangular with a long lot that goes down to, yes, exactly. On that corner, the far west corner, it abuts the Levine property, right? So there's an easement across the Levine property that must be completed in the next, I believe it is 4 years that are left, that would then attach to the two parcels on top of the Levine, and the next, those two, and then one further out, not the long narrow one, which is part of the P, go up two more right there, which is along the Baker Road corridor. This is part of a large PUD that the Planning Commission has taken a look at. It's been put on hold as we review the master plan. There's implications for the master plan review process to this PUD proposal. So there's nothing that's happening on this. This isn't something that's written in stone. The reason I wanted to have this conversation is that we need to be mindful that there's possibly in the next year a large opportunity with the Mersereau property in relation to access, development, paths, and all of the other requirements for what we've done at Marshall, what we did at West Scio, and what we need to do at Van Curler. So I just want to make sure there's some, we've concentrated our efforts trying to, I also want us to be strategic in our planning for these upcoming parcels, and that's not including, as Hyde would indicate, whatever else the LPC is working on, or something that we would suggest to the LPC. So I just want to make sure that that was on people's radar. We can spend a lot of time going over the specificity of the Mersereau property and access at our next meeting, but I wanted to put it out there for discussion. And I'm happy to answer questions, but I didn't want to take a lot of time this evening. I know that we have a lot on the agenda.
Alec, I just want to add and emphasize what you've said is Mersereau is a naturally occurring woodland. It's all native trees. It's really quite a impressive woodland, and we're going to want to make sure that the public has access to it. So I think it's really important to keep this 34-acre woodland in mind as we go through our strategic planning.
Bob, thank you, Bob.
Alec, do you anticipate that the easement would allow access from Sloan all the way to the Mersereau property?
There is no easement. There's an easement across the Levine property. There is nothing there. I know that, and Bob's probably going to speak to this. There's been the PUD is proposed. Part of what's being proposed by the PUD is going to be based on the master plan. So there's nothing that is in stone or anywhere near stone. These are just proposals for that, but they have talked about having some and preserving some of the woodlands in the back of that PUD so that there would be connectivity from the Mersereau via the Levine to other acreage and woods associated with the PUD. So that's what would be available to us, hopefully, assuming that we have, productive discussions with the developer and trying to make sure that we provide public access to some of our parks.
Thank you.
Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Alec, that wasn't going to be where I was focused on. I know that the development still has to be have a lot of discussion on. Assuming that we get a connection over to the Mersereau property, my question is, does the Mersereau property have access to Marshall Road itself? You're on mute, Alec.
Walking access. There's no parking lot. Just walking access.
That's what I thought. Alec, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, Hab is correct. There's an easement along the back side of the barn that gives us access off of Marshall Road. That does not sustain a parking lot. That's one of the reasons actually that it could not be developed, is because the road commission would not give the individual, he didn't have enough frontage in order to have a safe ability to add in a driveway to access that property, which was one of the reasons that we were able to get it and he sold it to us. That being said, there is pedestrian access off of Marshall Road, all the way up and into the 34 acres.
If I remember, Alec, it's a 20-foot wide walking access that takes you to the very east side of Mersereau.
You are correct.
Okay. And by a very nice and very large barn.
I'm sorry, you guys, but I have to go. Thank you. Thanks, Alex. I'm sorry that I'm walking out right now. But I have
well, the nice thing about this is there's plenty of other opportunities to talk about this property. This is just an introduction.
Okay, good. Perfect.
All right, thanks, Rita. Does
Okay.
anyone else have any discussion points about Mersereau or questions for Alec or Hob? Thank you, Alec. I think this is important. We get laser focused on these three properties that we've been doing, and it's important to continue to look at the macro level of our concepts here. And so, which leads to our next item, which we don't really need to spend a lot of time, but I guess what I want out of this is for you, I really want to encourage you to visit Van Curler, visit Township Hall, and start to brainstorm and really think about the possibilities and what these spaces could be for Scio Township. And so Alec and I have a meeting tomorrow, and Bob was kind enough to kind of do a spreadsheet starter, and then Alec and I have put some numbers in. very speculative, but I know Hob and Alec remember these days back in 2016, 2017, we would prioritize because we have to do another pros plan from 23 to 27. We also need to do a millage spending plan. So some of these macro long-term spending items we need to start to prioritize and as best we can forecast some numbers. And so Van Curler, we've targeted at 3. Alec, I think we've targeted that at 340. And, this is speculative at best, but, Van Curler could be a big number, especially if we have northern access and southern access. And some of this could be alleviated with some donors and things of that nature. Township Hall could just be a monster number, especially if we decide to do something grand with a playground. You can go $300,000 easy. I think the important thing to remember is that we solicit public input and get that process started with a consultant before we publish our next pros plan, which is what we did before, and that can help us guide us in the pursuit of grants and helping Jane, get our place. I think it's important that the voters and the taxpayers see planning and development going on with parks and preserves, and it's not just all allocated to the Z-Road path, like some sort of special assessment. So I think that the voters and taxpayers would like to see some of our, that we at least get a seat at the table. That's the best way I can put it. Does anybody have any thoughts or discussion about long-term millage spending and moving forward? So this is more of a request from you guys. If you haven't done the Moose Off to Liberty Pond Connector Trail, I'm sure myself or Hob or the interns would be happy to guide you. I would think that's a must walk. I've got time this summer. Any one of us could happily do that for you.
Real quick, Andy, this is pertinent to those numbers. The governor today announced that she's landed $150 million, which is going to from the federal government, which is going to go towards local parks and trails in Michigan. And there's another. I've read the press release that just came in. It looks like another $250 million. So there's a lot of funding that we can match with our. Apparently, I mean, again, this is just announced today. That there is quite a bit of funding that we could use to match our local funds. I think that's pretty exciting. I will forward this email to you all right now.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing, Hob. Yeah, I think that's a big deal that we try to leverage our spending, and I'll email communication. Obviously, Norm knows, and the TAP folks are working hard pursuing grants and trying to leverage their money as best as possible with state grants and federal and community partners to try to leverage our millage money, and we will want to have those same pursuits.
Everyone will now have that press release in their email. Pretty exciting.
All right, we're actually doing pretty good here. So we got one little the item. The new M, but let's Hob on item K. Is there anything that you need in support of for the Marshall Park tour? I know that we could use people from the PAB to represent. I will most likely be there. I'm going to do a little housekeeping over there, cut some things back along the boardwalk with Patrick, and just try to, Steve mowed it down, which was a great sign of progress that they've got. They now have that on their mowing schedule, and I'm going to meet with him to kind of refine that, but it looks much nicer now in terms of the Saturday tour. But I'll turn it over to you, Hob.
No, I just first want to make an apology. I sent everyone an email today, and I put in capital letters, "Are you coming?" Apparently, I found out that is sort of like the equivalent of shouting. So, this is just an attempt to, thank you, Bob. This is just an attempt to get your attention. But anyway, I hope you all will come. This is a chance to meet your respective colleagues in the Land Preservation Commission, which currently there are 5 people, and vice versa. So it's a chance for you to get to know some people that are just as active as we are in the township. And I know a couple of Board of Trustees, Alec, I don't know if you're going to be able to make it, but have expressed an interest in being there as well. Secondly, we have almost a dozen people signed up. We asked for pre-registrations through the newsletter. So this is also a chance for you probably to meet people that are not only very interested in our Parks and Preserves program, but these are people that want to meet you. So you need to be there if you can be. And I think, again, I've sent out an email with the details, but we will be meeting at Township Hall. Please meet at Township Hall. I know it's supposed to be a tour of Marshall. It will be, but we're going to walk up the pathway so we can appreciate some of the plantings. And so there's some gigantic, beautiful, really outstanding trees, including in front of our fire station, which I walked the other day, and I'm thinking, wow, we've got some really monster trees. There's one in front of Township Hall, actually a pair that are just huge, and you might be, they're both conifers, and they both grow in the Rocky Mountains. I was astounded to realize that we have 2 large ponderosa pines right on our own property. So as we leave to walk up the pathway at 10 o'clock, we will be seeing a lot of really cool trees, and of course Marshall Park. Finally, if you're not sure you can make the walk, or you know someone that wants to come, we will be arranging carpooling for people that simply want to meet us there. But we're asking everyone to meet first at Township Hall, because as you know, there's only 6 parking spaces. So with the number of people coming, the parking spaces will be taken within the first 5 minutes. So please don't go up to Marshall Park and park. Please come to Township Hall first. Any questions about Saturday? Thank you all that have RSVP'd. If you haven't and you're able to come, let me know so we can. Oh, if you haven't ever met the interns in person, they will be meeting us this Saturday at 10 o'clock as well. That would be Anna and James. So here's a chance to get to know them in person.
Thanks, Bob. It looks like the weather, last time I checked, we should have a decent weather window.
It's going to be the best weather of the whole summer. And the mosquitoes, we're going to ask the Board of Trustees to make sure there are no biting bugs. Not sure about the tick situation, but I'm not planning to take people into the brushy fields at Marshall. My plan with my group will be to walk on the boardwalk, and I don't know the other leaders that are coming, Rita and Anna and James. I don't know what their plan is, but we really need to be cognizant that the tick season is well upon us.
Hobbs, how's the public input portion of that? You know, there was some mention of some surveys, or is there anything that you need help with regarding some of those logistics?
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy. That's a great point. We're doing a little, I don't know if we'll have them for Saturday, but certainly for August. We're going to have a little brochure talking about Marshall Park and West Scio Preserve with some of the plants and trees and birds that you might find there. A little trifold, and we're hoping on the back we can put a QR code to get with some very simple questions that people can use the QR code to put on their phone. They'll answer the survey, and then of course the interns will be analyzing that information. So yeah, we're going to attempt to have that ready for Saturday. We'll see, sort of on tender hooks, to see if we can get that accomplished.
All right. Any other discussion with Hob regarding the Saturday tour?
It should be great fun. We will have you back at Township Hall by 12 noon. If we don't get you back by then we'll have Willow twigs available for the meetings that I will have to submit to.
Perfect. All right. So just for the record, I had us done at 7:04, but this, I'm sure, did everybody get a chance to see this on their email today?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, it did.
Oh yeah, I got it. I read it. Yep.
I completely understand. So basically, this came from Jessica, and what we were directed to do, and the problem is we're always like right away first on the list. So and she was being respectful of us, and so because she knew we were meeting tonight. But so basically, and Alec, you can speak to this probably better than I can. But at a previous Board of Trustee meeting, this was adopted. And each committee or board or commission needs to have a motion for adoption for in-person meetings for all meetings held August 1st forward. So Patrick, that can be our motion. And just on a side note, Lisa Baker was selected for training. Christy tried to choose non-officers just so, because officers are often busy during meetings. And so Christy kind of showed me the system, so it's pretty techy, but it'll allow for, like I said at the beginning, for us to be in person, citizens to be in person, board members to be remote, citizens to be remote. So full hybrid for all parties. You're certainly welcome to vote. I will get the motion going, and then in theory you can vote no. And if that prevails, then that's our board saying that we want to stay remote, which actually, honestly, well, let's just put it to a motion because we've already adopted the remote learning teacher talk. We've already adopted the remote meeting. But I think we pretty much have to put this forth as a motion and then either vote yes or no. If you vote yes, then that means that you have a choice for our August meeting, but we will be in person. And then if you vote no, that's a vote for saying that you want to stay hybrid, or the whole group should stay hybrid. For the sake of time, there's some real merit to being remote. When we used to meet in person, we will be in the large room, the large conference room. We will no longer be in that side office. Back in the old days, we didn't really share technology like we have with these Zoom meetings. So it'll be a little bit of a transition. I mean, we're able to share so much technology and material via screen shares, and I will do my best to make this transition and using that Scio technology. But for the sake of time, Alec, is there anything that you could probably add that I missed?
No, all I would say is that last meeting, we actually had a discussion and all of us were in favor of having a in-person meeting, which I shared, as well as the LPC at our at the township meeting. And this would just be clarifying whether or not you are comfortable meeting in person and or having the group meet in person, and you would still have the availability to participate remotely should you not be comfortable.
Do we need to do it as do we need to adopt it as a motion right now, or do we just say that's the way it's going to be?
I would just say you would support the model resolution. A motion to support the model resolution, which is what she's provided.
Okay. All right, so that's what we're going to do. So this is a motion to adopt the model resolution for in-person meetings for all meetings held August 1st forward.
I'll second that.
So, yeah, motion by Turner, support by Hyde. And Patrick, if you could call the roll, please.
Discussion, Chair, discussion.
Oh, I did it again. Yes, discussion, please.
To some degree, I don't understand what my options are. My immediate concern is that this means I would have to be in a room with people that I don't know necessarily, and that I would not be comfortable whether or not they've been vaccinated or recently traveled abroad, this sort of thing. So unless someone wants to clarify this motion, I will be voting no.
I think you can participate remotely, Hob.
Is that right?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Then I'll probably vote yes.
Yeah, that's why I kind of tripped myself up. Yeah, I mean, yeah, as long as you have the option, I mean, there really doesn't require, but I guess we need to formally adopt this. And so, is there any other discussion from our board or from the public regarding this model motion? Okay, Patrick, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Okay, Hob Calhoun,
Yes.
Chuck Billups,
Yes.
Bob Hyde,
Yes.
Andy Turner,
Yes.
Norm Roller. Norm, are you still with us?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Patrick McLaughlin votes yes. Alec Jerome,
Yes.
and Rita is no longer here. So with the exception of Rita and Lisa being absent, it has passed.
Thanks, Patrick. Pam Boy, go ahead.
All right, I know you're trying to be fast, and so you're too quick for me figuring out where my hand was. So we residents really appreciate the hybrid opportunity because of different situations in the township with residents. And especially with me now going to all of the meetings, having it be remote for me is so much easier, and I appreciate that option. So thank you. Good meeting, guys.
Thank you, and you're welcome. Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
agree.
Pam. Thank you, Pam.
All right. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
I'm happy to make such a motion, or Bob, you can make it.
I'll second you.
Support you either way.
And Patrick, we'll go old school. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Everybody enjoy your week. We'll possibly see you on Saturday, and everybody have a good evening.
Okay,
See you later.
Okay.
good job.
Thanks, everyone.
See you Saturday. Thank you. Township
Good job, Andy. Thank you.
Yeah, great leading. Thank you, Andy.
Yep. All right, 3, 2, 1.
We didn't